The journey into enemy territory was tense and silent. Ryan Carter sat at the front of the transport vehicle, his eyes fixed on the navigation screen as the craft glided silently through the night sky. Behind him, Clara Bennett checked her medical kit for the third time, while Jake Miller adjusted the settings on his communication device. Dr. Olivia Monroe sat near the back, reviewing footage from Ryan's encounter with the Falcon and other animals. Her tablet illuminated her face in the dim light, highlighting the worry etched across her features. No one spoke much during the flight. Each member of the team knew the risks involved. They were heading into uncharted territory, not just geographically, but emotionally and morally. For years, humanity had treated animals as tools or property, rarely considering their thoughts or feelings. Now they were asking those same creatures for mercy, and possibly forgiveness. The weight of that realization hung heavy in the air. When the transport landed on the outskirts of a dense forest, the team disembarked cautiously. The area was eerily quiet, save for the rustling of leaves in the wind. Ryan led the way, his rifle slung over his shoulder but his hands free to signal if needed. He carried no tranquilizer darts this time. He wanted to show the animals they weren't there to harm them. Clara followed close behind, clutching her med kit tightly, while Jake scanned the surroundings with a handheld scanner designed to detect neural activity. Olivia brought up the rear, holding her tablet like a shield against the uncertainty ahead. They walked for hours, guided only by vague coordinates provided by the surveillance drones. Just as fatigue began to set in, the forest opened into a wide clearing. At its center stood the wolf that had led Ryan to the Falcon days earlier. Beside it perched the Falcon itself, its sharp gaze locked onto the approaching humans. Around them gathered dozens of animals, dogs, cats, birds, rodents, all watching silently, their movements calm but deliberate. Ryan stopped a few meters away, raising his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. "We're here to talk," he said, his voice steady despite the knot of fear in his stomach. Whether the animals understood his words didn't matter. The tone and body language were clear enough. To his surprise, the Falcon spread its wings slightly and let out a low, melodic cry. It sounded almost welcoming. Olivia stepped forward, her tablet glowing softly as she reviewed behavioral patterns. She whispered to Ryan, "I think they're signaling us to follow." "Follow where?" Ryan asked under his breath. Olivia pointed toward the trees beyond the clearing. Sure enough, the wolf turned and began walking deeper into the forest, glancing back occasionally to ensure they were following. The Falcon took flight, circling overhead like a guide. Without hesitation, Ryan motioned for his team to move forward. The path led them to a hidden valley nestled deep within the forest. What they found there left them speechless. Animals of all kinds milled about peacefully, sharing space without conflict. Deer grazed alongside foxes, hawks roosted near pigeons, and even predators like wolves and bears seemed content to coexist. In the middle of the valley stood a large stone platform, surrounded by smaller stones arranged in a circle. On top of the central stone sat the Falcon, flanked by two massive wolves and a sleek black panther. Ryan exchanged a glance with Olivia, who nodded encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, he approached the platform, stopping just a few feet away. The Falcon tilted its head, studying him with an intensity that made Ryan feel both exposed and respected. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the bird opened its beak and mimicked human speech. "You come to listen?" The voice was distorted, mechanical yet unmistakably intelligible. Ryan froze, unsure how to respond. Finally, he managed a single word, "Yes." The Falcon let out another cry, this one softer, almost approving. The two wolves stepped forward, lowering their heads slightly in what appeared to be a gesture of respect, or perhaps caution. The panther remained still, its golden eyes never leaving Ryan's face. Olivia stepped forward, holding up her tablet. "We know you've been communicating," she said carefully, "and we know someone has given you these abilities. We want to understand why." The Falcon blinked once, then replied, "Why not ask yourselves?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Ryan felt a lump rise in his throat. He glanced at Olivia, who looked equally unsettled. "What do you mean?" she asked after a moment. The falcon spread its wings again, lifting off the platform and hovering above the group. Its piercing gaze swept over each human before settling on Ryan. "For centuries, your kind ruled without thought. You took, you used, you destroyed. Now we take back." Ryan swallowed hard, guilt washing over him. "We didn't mean—" He started, but the falcon cut him off. "Meant or not, the damage is done. Forests burned, oceans poisoned, lives taken. Enough." The final word echoed like a command, silencing any attempt at justification. Ryan lowered his head, unable to meet the falcon's gaze. He thought of Max, the dog he'd abandoned as a teenager, and all the others like him, creatures who had given loyalty and love only to be discarded or exploited. Clara spoke up hesitantly, breaking the silence. "Is there anything we can do to make things right?" The falcon landed gracefully on the edge of the platform, tilting its head as if considering the question. After a long pause, it replied, "Prove you are worthy." "How?" Ryan asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "Tell us what you want." The falcon's eyes narrowed. "Not what we want. What you must give. Freedom, respect, balance." Before anyone could respond, the panther padded forward, its movements fluid and deliberate. It stopped beside the falcon and let out a low growl, deep and resonant. The sound sent shivers down Ryan's spine. Then, to everyone's shock, the panther spoke, not in mimicry but in a smooth, almost human-like voice. "You cannot undo the past," it said, "but you can choose a different future, will you?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Ryan looked at his team, searching for guidance, but they seemed just as stunned as he was. Finally, Olivia stepped forward, her expression resolute. "We'll try," she said firmly. "If you'll let us." The falcon studied her for a long moment, then nodded slightly. "Then we will see." As the team made their way back to the transport, the weight of the conversation settled over them. None of them spoke until they were safely aboard the vehicle, headed back to Command Central. Ryan stared out the window, replaying the meeting in his mind. The falcon's words echoed in his thoughts. Freedom, respect, balance. Simple concepts, yet so alien to humanity's way of thinking. When they arrived, Hayes greeted them personally, eager to hear their report. Ryan recounted every detail, from the falcon's eerie ability to mimic speech to the panther's haunting question. When he finished, Hayes leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "So they're giving us a chance," Hayes said finally. "A chance to prove ourselves." "It's more than that," Olivia interjected. "They're offering a partnership, a new way of living. But it comes with conditions. We have to change how we treat them, and the planet." Hayes sighed deeply. His expression conflicted. "Change isn't easy, especially when it means admitting we were wrong. But it's necessary," Ryan added quietly. "If we don't, we'll lose everything." For a long moment, no one spoke. The room was filled with the hum of machinery and the distant murmur of soldiers preparing for battle. Finally, Hayes stood up, his decision clear. "Then we start now," he said. "Draft a proposal for negotiation, and get me a list of immediate actions we can take to show we're serious. If this works, it might save us all." As the team dispersed to carry out his orders, Ryan lingered behind, staring at the falcon's image on his tablet. Its piercing gaze seemed to challenge him once again, to prove that humanity could rise above its mistakes. For the first time, in weeks, Ryan felt a flicker of hope. It was fragile, uncertain, but real. And maybe, just maybe, it was enough. Commander Daniel Hayes knew he had to act quickly. The attacks were spreading faster than anyone could contain them, and humanity's grip on its empire was slipping with each passing day. He called an emergency meeting at Command Central, gathering his top officers, scientists, and strategists. Among them was Dr. Olivia Munro, whose research had become invaluable in understanding the enemy. Also present was Lieutenant Ryan Carter, still reeling from his failed mission to capture the Falcon but determined to make things right. The room buzzed with tension as Hayes addressed the group. "We're losing this war," he admitted bluntly, cutting through the usual formalities. If we don't find a way to stop these attacks, and soon, we won't just lose control of Earth. We'll lose everything. Olivia stepped forward, her voice steady, despite the weight of what she was about to say. This isn't just a rebellion, she reminded everyone. It's organized resistance. These animals aren't acting alone, they're being directed. And if we want to fight back effectively, we need to understand who, or what, is leading. Them. Ryan nodded in agreement. My team saw it firsthand, he added. That falcon wasn't just watching us, it was studying us. It knew exactly where we were, what we were doing, and how to avoid capture. Whatever is controlling these animals, it's smart. Hayes turned to face the holographic displays hovering above the table. Maps showed hotspots of animal activity across the globe. Cities plunged into chaos, farms abandoned, transportation networks crippled. The situation was dire, and time was running out. We can't keep fighting blindly, Hayes said. From now on, every decision we make has to be based on intelligence. That means finding their leaders and taking them out. The room fell, silent as the gravity of his words sank in. Humanity had always relied on brute force to conquer its enemies, whether alien or human. But this time, strength alone wouldn't be enough. They needed strategy, precision, and maybe even diplomacy. Over the next few days, Hayes assembled a specialized task force dedicated to infiltrating animal strongholds and gathering critical information. Ryan was appointed leader of the operation, a role he accepted with mixed feelings. On one hand, he felt honored to take charge of such an important mission. On the other, he couldn't shake the guilt gnawing at him. He had spent years dismissing animals as mere tools or companions. Never, considering their potential for intelligence or resentment. Now, faced with the consequences of humanity's arrogance, he wondered if redemption was even possible. Dr. Olivia Monroe joined the task force as its scientific advisor, bringing along samples of neural implants recovered from captured animals. Her analysis revealed something alarming. The devices weren't just enhancing communication, they were rewriting instincts. Predators and prey worked together seamlessly, ignoring millennia of evolutionary programming. Even more disturbing, some implants showed traces of artificial intelligence, code fragments suggesting that the animals were being remotely controlled. This changes everything, Olivia told Ryan during a briefing. These creatures aren't fully autonomous. Someone is pulling the strings. Who? Ryan asked, frustration creeping into his voice. Aliens? A rogue faction? Or are we looking at something worse? Olivia hesitated before answering. I don't know yet, but whoever it is, they've managed to unite species that have been at odds for millions of years. If we don't figure out their endgame, we're finished. The first objective of the task force was clear: locate the falcons spotted during Ryan's previous mission. Surveillance drones scoured the skies while ground teams searched urban ruins and rural wastelands. Days turned into weeks, with little progress to show for their efforts. Just when morale began to waver, a breakthrough came, not from technology, but from an unexpected source. One night, while patrolling the outskirts of a crumbling city, Ryan's unit encountered a lone wolf standing in the middle of the road. Its fur was matted with dirt and scars crisscrossed its body, but its eyes burned with intelligence. Instead of attacking, the wolf simply watched as the soldiers approached. When Ryan raised his weapon, the creature didn't flinch. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, almost as if inviting him closer. "What do you think it wants?" whispered one of the soldiers, gripping his rifle tightly. "I don't know," Ryan replied, lowering his weapon cautiously. "But I'm not shooting, unless it gives me a reason." Against his better judgment, Ryan stepped forward, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. To his surprise, the wolf didn't retreat. Instead, it turned and began walking away, glancing over its shoulder as if expecting him to follow. Ryan exchanged a glance with his team before motioning for them to stay put. Then, gripping his tranquilizer gun, he followed the wolf into the darkness. The creature led him through a maze of abandoned buildings and overgrown streets until they reached a clearing surrounded by dense trees. In the center stood the falcon, perched atop a rusted lamppost. Unlike the last time Ryan had seen it, the bird didn't flee. Instead, it fixed him with an unblinking stare, its sharp eyes gleaming in the moonlight. For a moment, Ryan froze, unsure of what to do. Then slowly, he lowered his weapon and held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly, though he doubted the bird could understand him. "I just want to talk." To his astonishment, the falcon spread its wings and let out a piercing cry. Moments later, other animals began emerging from the shadows: dogs, cats, rats, even a few deer. They formed a loose circle around Ryan, their movements calm but deliberate. None of them attacked. Instead, they seemed to be waiting for something. Back at Command Central, Olivia and Nathan Cole analyzed footage from Ryan's helmet camera, their faces pale with disbelief. "This is unprecedented," Olivia murmured, rewinding the clip to watch it again. "They're communicating with him, not aggressively but intentionally." "It's like they're trying to send a message," Nathan added, pointing to subtle cues in the animal's behavior. "Look at how the falcon tilts its head. It's mimicking human gestures." Hayes listened intently, his expression grim. "So what does it mean? Are they offering a truce? Or a warning?" Olivia said quietly. "Either way, we need to respond carefully." Ryan returned to base later that night, exhausted but exhilarated. For the first time since the war began, he felt a glimmer of hope. The animals hadn't killed him. They had shown restraint, even curiosity. Maybe there was still a chance to bridge the gap between humans and their former pets. When he reported his findings to Hayes, the commander listened without interrupting. When Ryan finished, Hayes leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. Finally, he spoke. "If they're willing to negotiate, then we owe it to ourselves and to them to try. But we can't afford to look weak. Send your best people equipped with everything they need to defend themselves, and bring Monroe. If anyone can interpret their signals, it's her." Ryan nodded, relief washing over himself. "Understood, sir." As preparations for the negotiation mission began, Olivia worked tirelessly to decode the animal's behavior. She reviewed hours of footage, searching for patterns that might reveal their intentions. Meanwhile, Ryan assembled a small team of trusted soldiers, including a medic named Clara Bennett and a communications expert named Jake Miller. Together, they loaded supplies onto a stealth transport vehicle designed to evade detection. Before departing, Hayes pulled Ryan aside for a private conversation. "Remember why we're doing this," he said firmly. "Not because we're afraid, but because we want to survive. If this works, it could save billions of lives. If it doesn't..." He trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished. Ryan understood the stakes. Failure meant annihilation, not just for humanity, but for the fragile balance of life on Earth. Success, however unlikely, offered a slim chance at coexistence. As he climbed aboard the transport, he glanced at the falcon's image displayed on his tablet. Its piercing gaze seemed to bore into his soul, challenging him to prove that humanity deserved a second chance. With engines humming softly, the vehicle lifted off the ground, disappearing into the night sky. Ahead lay unknown dangers, and perhaps a path to peace. The first major attack came without warning. It wasn't a skirmish or an isolated incident. It was a full-scale assault that shook humanity to its core. In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers pierced the sky and millions of people bustled through the streets, chaos erupted overnight. Pigeons, once dismissed as harmless nuisances, descended in massive flocks, targeting power grids and communication towers. They flew with precision, their movements synchronized like a well-trained army. Within hours, Manhattan plunged into darkness, leaving residents stranded in elevators, subway tunnels, and high-rise apartments. At the same time, rats emerged from sewers and shadows, overrunning neighborhoods with terrifying speed. They chewed through electrical wires, sabotaged water systems, and even attacked anyone who dared venture outside. The streets became battlegrounds, littered with abandoned vehicles, broken glass, and the bodies of those caught unprepared. Panic spread faster than the attacks themselves, as news outlets broadcast images of the devastation across the globe. Social media exploded with videos of people fleeing their homes, clutching whatever belongings they could carry. Humanity had faced threats before, but never from creatures they had long considered beneath them. Commander Daniel Hayes watched the reports flood in from Command Central, his face pale with disbelief. He had always prided himself on being a man of action, someone who could make tough decisions under pressure. But this was different. This wasn't an alien fleet descending from the stars, or a natural disaster sweeping across continents. This was Earth fighting back, Earth's animals, united in ways no one could have imagined. Ryan Carter, a decorated soldier stationed in Chicago, received orders to mobilize his unit within minutes of the outbreak. At first he thought it was just another routine mission, a minor disturbance easily contained. But when his convoy rolled out of the base, the reality hit hard. Packs of feral dogs roamed the outskirts of the city, their eyes gleaming with unnatural intelligence. They didn't scatter at the sight of armored vehicles. Instead, they circled the convoy, barking and growling in eerie unison. Ryan gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white. He had grown up with a dog named Max, loyal and loving until the day Ryan left for military training. Now, staring at these snarling beasts, he couldn't help but wonder if Max would recognize him, or if he'd join the others in tearing him apart. The convoy pressed forward, but the dogs were relentless. They darted between vehicles, biting tires and clawing at doors. One soldier leaned out of a window, firing his rifle into the crowd, only to be dragged down moments later by a dozen snapping jaws. Screams echoed through the air as the rest of the unit scrambled to retreat. By the time they reached safety, half the convoy was lost and morale was shattered. For the first time in his career, Ryan felt truly afraid, not of death, but of what it meant to fight against something he had once loved. Back at headquarters, Dr. Olivia Monroe worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle. She analyzed footage of the attacks, studying every detail. The pigeons weren't just random pests. They targeted specific infrastructure with surgical precision. The rats didn't act on instinct. They followed patterns too complex to be coincidence. Even the dogs moved with purpose, herding humans into traps and cutting off escape routes. It was war, plain and simple, and humanity was losing. Olivia shared her findings with Commander Hayes, who listened in grim silence. "This isn't just rebellion," she told him. "It's strategy. Someone is directing them." "Who?" Hayes demanded, slamming his fist on the table. "Who has the power to turn animals into soldiers?" "I don't know yet," Olivia admitted. "But whoever it is, they're using technology far beyond anything we've developed. Those neural implants I found, they're not just enhancing communication, they're rewriting instincts, turning predators and prey into allies." Hayes paced the room, his mind racing. If Olivia was right, then humanity wasn't just facing a rebellion, it was facing a revolution. The very foundation of human dominance was crumbling, replaced by a new order where animals called the shots. He thought about the empire humanity had built, the countless worlds conquered and civilizations subjugated. Had they become so arrogant that they failed to see the consequences of their actions? Was this karma, delivered in claws and teeth? As the days passed, the attacks grew more coordinated and devastating. Livestock refused to enter slaughterhouses, causing food shortages that rippled through supply chains. Bees abandoned hives en masse, leaving crops unpollinated and threatening global agriculture. Even house cats joined the fray, infiltrating homes to disable security systems and sabotage appliances. People barricaded themselves indoors, too terrified to step outside. Cities that once thrived with life now resembled ghost towns, haunted by the sounds of barking, screeching, and scratching. Indy. Response: governments declared martial law, deploying troops to restore order, but traditional tactics proved useless against enemies that blended into the environment and struck without warning. Soldiers trained to fight aliens struggled to adapt to foes that looked like pets and pests. Casualties mounted, and public confidence in leadership plummeted. Protests erupted in cities worldwide, with civilians demanding answers and accountability. How had humanity let this happen? Why hadn't anyone seen it coming? Amid the chaos, rumors began to spread. Some claimed the animals were possessed by alien spirits, sent to punish humanity for its sins. Others whispered of ancient prophecies foretelling the rise of Earth's creatures. Conspiracy theorists pointed fingers at rogue scientists, accusing them of creating the implants as part of a secret experiment gone wrong. No one knew for certain what was happening, but everyone agreed on one thing. This was no ordinary uprising. Dr. Nathan Cole, Olivia's colleague and partner in unraveling the mystery, spent long nights analyzing the implants. Under a microscope, they appeared almost organic, blending seamlessly with neural tissue. Yet embedded within each device was a lattice of synthetic material unlike anything Nathan had ever seen. "This tech is centuries ahead of ours," he muttered, shaking his head. "Whoever made this didn't just enhance animals. They rewrote their biology." "But why?" Olivia asked, leaning over his shoulder. "What's the goal? Revenge? Control?" Nathan hesitated, his brow furrowed in thought. Maybe both, or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe they're tired of being treated like property. The idea lingered in Olivia's mind as she returned to her lab. For decades, humanity had exploited animals for food, labor, and companionship, rarely considering their needs or desires. Now those same creatures were rising up, demanding recognition and respect. Could this really be justice served? Or was it something darker, a reckoning humanity couldn't escape? One evening, as Olivia reviewed footage of the attacks, she noticed something strange. Among the pigeons attacking drones in New York, one bird stood out. Its movements were fluid, deliberate, almost human-like. When it tilted its head toward a camera, Olivia froze. Embedded in its eye was a faint glimmer of light, an implant identical to those found in other animals. But this one seemed different, more advanced. She flagged the clip and forwarded it to Nathan, who immediately recognized its significance. "This isn't just a participant," he said, his voice tinged with awe. "This is a leader." "A leader?" Olivia repeated, her pulse quickening. "You mean there's someone, or something, coordinating all this?" "It's possible," Nathan replied. "If that bird is acting as a commander, then we're dealing with a hierarchy, a chain of command." The implications were staggering. If the animals had leaders, then humanity might have a chance to negotiate, if they could find the right approach. But how do you reason with creatures you've spent centuries dominating? How do you apologize for generations of exploitation? Commander, Hayes wrestled with these questions as he prepared for the next phase of the conflict. He ordered increased surveillance, hoping to identify key players in the animal coalition. At the same time, he authorized covert operations to capture specimens for study. If humanity couldn't defeat its enemies outright, perhaps it could learn from them. Among the soldiers chosen for the mission was Ryan Carter, whose guilt over abandoning Max had grown into a gnawing sense of responsibility. When Hayes briefed him on the operation, Ryan accepted without hesitation. "I need to understand," he said simply. "If we're going to fix this, we have to know why it started." The mission took Ryan deep into enemy territory, where packs of feral dogs roamed freely and birds circled overhead like vultures. Armed with tranquilizer guns and data collectors, his team ventured cautiously, scanning for signs of leadership. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the rustle of leaves and distant growls. Then, just as hope began to fade, they spotted a lone falcon perched atop a crumbling building, watching them with piercing eyes. Ryan raised his weapon slowly, aiming for a clean shot. But as he pulled the trigger, the falcon took flight, disappearing into the horizon. Frustrated but undeterred, Ryan signaled his team to regroup. They hadn't captured their target, but they had learned something valuable. The animals weren't just fighting blindly. They were observing, learning, adapting. Back at headquarters, Olivia pieced together the fragments of information gathered during the mission. The falcon's behavior suggested intelligence far beyond instinct. Dr. Olivia Munro had always been a woman of science. She believed in facts, evidence, and logic. But as she stared at the data streaming across her holographic display aboard the Argo, even she struggled to reconcile what she was seeing with everything she thought she knew about animals. It wasn't just one species acting strangely, it was all of them. Dogs, cats, birds, rodents, insects, every creature on Earth seemed to be behaving in ways that defied explanation. Patterns emerged where none should exist. Coordination replaced chaos. Purpose replaced instinct. Her latest observations came from New York City, where pigeons had begun attacking surveillance drones. At first glance, it looked like random aggression, birds defending their territory or reacting to loud noises. But when Olivia reviewed the footage frame by frame, she noticed something unsettling. The pigeons weren't acting alone. They flew, in perfect formations, targeting specific drones while avoiding others. Some carried small objects in their beaks, dropping them onto sensitive equipment to disable it. Others circled above, seemingly acting as scouts. It was almost military precision. Olivia leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. Her mind raced with possibilities. Could this behavior have evolved naturally? Was it some kind of mutation, caused by environmental changes, or was there another explanation, one far more sinister? She glanced at the stack of reports piled on her desk, each detailing similar incidents around the globe. In Chicago, feral dogs had ambushed supply convoys, forcing soldiers to retreat. In rural Australia, livestock refused to enter slaughterhouses, standing firm despite attempts to herd them inside. Even bees were acting strangely, abandoning hives en masse and swarming human settlements. She decided to dig deeper. Using advanced sensors deployed by the Argo, she monitored brainwave activity in various species. What she found shocked her. Animals weren't just communicating, they were sharing information in real time. Neural pathways lit up in synchronized bursts, as if connected by an invisible network. Cats in Tokyo exhibited the same patterns as wolves in Siberia. Dolphins off the coast of California mirrored the activity of elephants in Africa. It was as if they were part of a single, planet-wide consciousness. Olivia knew she couldn't keep this discovery to herself. She encrypted her findings and sent them directly to Commander Hayes, hoping he would take her seriously. When the response came, a curt message instructing her to report to headquarters immediately, she felt a mix of relief and dread. Relief because someone was finally paying attention. Dread because she wasn't sure how humanity would react to what she had uncovered. The meeting took place in a sterile conference room deep within Command Central. Holographic displays flickered above the table, showing maps of recent animal disturbances. Hayes sat at the head of the table, flanked by high-ranking officers who listened intently as Olivia presented her case. She spoke clearly and calmly, laying out her evidence piece by piece. "These aren't isolated incidents," she said, pointing to a map of drone attacks. "This is coordinated action. Animals are working together, not just within species but across them." Hayes frowned, his brow furrowing as he studied the data. He asked questions, probing for weaknesses in her argument. "How do you explain this?" he demanded, gesturing to a video clip of dogs surrounding a convoy. "Are we supposed to believe they're planning strategy meetings?" "I'm not saying they're holding meetings," Olivia replied, "but I am saying they're capable of communication far beyond what we've assumed. Look at the neural activity scans. These animals are connected somehow, sharing information in ways we don't fully understand." One of the officers scoffed. "Connected? By what? Magic?" "It's not magic," Olivia shot back. "It could be technology. Someone, or something, might be enhancing their abilities." The room fell silent. Hayes leaned forward, his expression unreadable. "You're suggesting sabotage," he said slowly. "That someone is weaponizing animals against us. I'm suggesting we investigate further," Olivia corrected him. "If there's a threat, we need to know its source." Hayes nodded, though his skepticism lingered. After dismissing the group, he stayed behind to speak with Olivia privately. "Why didn't you bring this to me sooner?" he asked, his tone softer now. "I wanted to be sure," she admitted. But the evidence keeps piling up. We can't ignore it anymore. Hayes sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. For a moment, he looked older than his years, burdened by the weight of leadership. If you're right, he said quietly, then we're facing something bigger than any alien invasion. This isn't just about survival, it's about trust. If animals are turning against us, it means we've failed them. And if we've failed them... He trailed off, leaving the sentence unfinished, but Olivia understood. Trust was the foundation of power, and without it, humanity's dominance would crumble. As days passed, Olivia continued her research, determined to uncover the truth. She reached out to colleagues in other fields, pooling resources and expertise. Among them was Dr. Nathan Cole, a neuroscientist specializing in artificial intelligence. Together, they analyzed tissue samples taken from affected animals, searching for signs of tampering. What they found confirmed Olivia's worst fears: tiny implants embedded in the animals' brains. These devices enhanced neural activity, allowing for rapid communication and decision-making. "This isn't natural evolution," Nathan said grimly, holding up a magnified image of one of the implants. "Someone created these, and whoever, did it has access to tech far beyond anything we've developed?" "But why?" Olivia asked. "What's the end game?" Nathan shook his head. "That's the question, isn't it? Maybe it's revenge, maybe it's control, or maybe it's something else entirely." While Olivia and Nathan worked tirelessly to unravel the mystery, events on Earth escalated. Reports poured in daily of new attacks and disruptions. Feral dogs roamed city streets, attacking anyone who crossed their path. Swarms of locusts devoured crops, leaving entire regions without food. Even domesticated pets turned on their owners, biting and scratching, in fits of rage. Fear spread faster than the violence itself, gripping humanity in a collective panic. Governments scrambled to respond, deploying military units to restore order. But traditional tactics proved ineffective. Soldiers trained to fight aliens struggled to adapt to enemies that blended into the environment, moved in unpredictable patterns, and struck without warning. Casualties mounted, morale plummeted, and public confidence in leadership wavered. Amid the chaos, rumors began to circulate. Some claimed the animals were possessed by alien spirits. Others whispered of ancient prophecies foretelling humanity's downfall. A few conspiracy theorists pointed fingers at rogue scientists, accusing them of creating the implants as part of a secret experiment gone wrong. No one knew for certain what was happening, but everyone agreed on one thing. This was no ordinary uprising. Commander Hayes watched the situation unfold with growing unease. He ordered increased security measures, tightening control over major cities and restricting movement between regions. Yet even as he issued commands, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was losing ground, not just physically, but morally. The creatures they had dismissed as inferior were proving to be formidable adversaries, driven by motives humanity couldn't comprehend. One night, unable to sleep, Hayes wandered the halls of Command Central. He stopped outside Olivia's lab, drawn by the faint glow of light seeping beneath the door. Pushing it open, he found her hunched over a workstation, surrounded by holograms and scattered notes. She looked up, startled, then relaxed when she saw who it was. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked with a tired smile. Hayes shook his head. "I keep thinking about Max," he admitted. "My dog back when I was a kid. He always seemed to know things before I did. Like he could read my mind." Olivia nodded. Maybe he could, in a way. They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the world pressing down on them both. Finally, Hayes broke the quiet. "Do you think we deserve this?" he asked softly. "All these centuries of treating animals like property. Do you think this is justice?" Olivia hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Justice isn't mine to decide," she said, "but if we want to survive, we need to start listening. To them, and to ourselves." Hayes didn't respond. Instead, he gazed at the holographic displays, watching streams of data flow like rivers of light. Somewhere in that endless cascade of information lay answers. Answers that might save humanity, or doom it forever. Humanity had reached a point where nothing seemed impossible. It was an age of triumph, where the human race stood tall as rulers of not just one planet, but countless others scattered across the stars. For centuries, people dreamed of exploring space, colonizing distant worlds, and meeting alien civilizations. But when humanity finally stepped out into the galaxy, they didn't find equals. They found subjects. Under the leadership of Commander Daniel Hayes and Chief Scientist Emily Parker, Earth's forces expanded rapidly, conquering planets and bending alien species to their will. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was dominating. The year was 2347, and Earth had become the center of a vast interstellar empire. Alien races who once resisted now served willingly, or unwillingly, as workers, soldiers, and traders. Resources flowed freely from conquered worlds back to Earth, fueling technological advancements that made life better for everyone. Skyscrapers stretched higher than ever before. Cities glowed with energy-efficient lights, and even poverty seemed like a relic of the past. Humanity had achieved what many thought was unattainable: control over their destiny and the universe itself. But despite all this progress, there was something unsettling beneath the surface. Back on Earth, creatures that humans had long considered inferior were beginning to behave strangely. Dogs barked in patterns that seemed too deliberate to be random. Cats prowled through neighborhoods with an eerie sense of purpose. Birds flew in formation so precise that they looked almost mechanical. These observations went largely ignored by most people, dismissed as coincidences or tricks of the mind. After all, animals were simple beings, weren't they? They were pets, livestock, pests, nothing more. Or so everyone believed. Dr. Olivia Munro was one of the few who noticed these changes. A brilliant xenobiologist stationed aboard the research vessel Argo, she spent her days studying animal behavior both on Earth and on newly discovered planets. Her work often brought her into contact with alien ecosystems, but lately, her attention had shifted closer to home. She began documenting unusual activities among Earth's fauna. In urban areas, pigeons appeared to coordinate attacks on surveillance drones, knocking them out of the sky with synchronized strikes. In rural regions, livestock refused to enter slaughterhouses, standing firm in defiance despite electric prods and shouts from handlers. Even insects seemed different, moving in swarms that blocked roads and disrupted supply lines. Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was happening. At first, she hesitated to share her findings, fearing ridicule from colleagues, who might dismiss her theories as paranoia. But as the evidence mounted, she knew she couldn't stay silent any longer. One evening, she compiled her data into a comprehensive report and sent it directly to Commander Hayes. The response came quickly, not from Hayes himself, but from his assistant, who scheduled a meeting for the following morning. When Olivia arrived at headquarters, she found herself face-to-face with Hayes and several high-ranking officials. The room was tense, filled with holographic displays showing maps of recent animal disturbances. Hayes listened intently as Olivia explained her observations, pointing out patterns that suggested coordination far beyond natural instinct. "These aren't isolated incidents," she said firmly. "Something or someone is influencing them." Hayes leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. He glanced at the other officers, then turned his gaze back to Olivia. "You're telling me that animals are organizing against us?" he asked, his tone skeptical. "That our own pets are plotting rebellion?" "It's not just pets," Olivia replied. "It's every species on Earth. And yes, I believe they're acting with intent. Look at the data. This isn't random behavior." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Hayes let out a sharp laugh. "Animals don't strategize, Gear," he said dismissively. "They're tools, resources, not rivals." His words echoed through the room, final and absolute. The meeting ended shortly after, leaving Olivia frustrated but determined to prove her case. Unbeknownst to her, Hayes wasn't entirely unconvinced. As he walked back to his office, memories surfaced from his childhood. A scruffy mutt named Max, who always seemed to know when Hayes was upset, nuzzling him with uncanny timing. Back then, he'd chalked it up to coincidence or wishful thinking. Now, though, those memories nagged at him, planting seeds of doubt about the nature of animals. Meanwhile, events on Earth continued to escalate. Livestock rebellions spread to farms worldwide, causing food shortages that rippled through the economy. Urban centers faced chaos as packs of feral dogs roamed streets, attacking anyone who ventured too close. Reports poured in daily, each one more alarming than the last. Yet despite the mounting evidence, humanity remained blind to the truth. To admit that animals could rise against them would mean confronting uncomfortable questions about their place in the universe and their treatment of other living beings. As days turned into weeks, tensions simmered just below the boiling point. Few realized that the war hadn't truly begun yet. It was merely a prelude to something far greater. Behind the scenes, forces were aligning, preparing for a conflict that would change the course of history forever. And while humanity basked in its dominance, oblivious to the storm gathering on the horizon, Earth's pets quietly plotted their next move. Commander Hayes tried to push thoughts of Olivia's report out of his mind, focusing instead on maintaining order across the Empire. But deep down, he couldn't ignore the unease gnawing at him. If animals really were capable of organizing against humans, then everything they thought they knew about power and superiority would crumble. And if that happened, humanity wouldn't just lose its grip on the galaxy, it would lose its identity. Little did Hayes, or anyone else, realize that the real battle was only beginning. What started as whispers of rebellion would soon erupt into open warfare, pitting Earth's former masters against those they once called pets. When the dust settled, nothing would ever be the same again.